When the clock struck midnight on January 1st, none of us expected this wrestling year to turn out the way it did. Hell, my mind wasn't even on wrestling at the moment. Best part about this is that it's July, so anything can happen in these 5 months. Who knows? John Cena returns as the Peacemaker. McMahon unretires. I don't know. Hell, there's some stuff going on right now that I couldn't add to this video because it was far too much. Right now, let's go back to January. Okay, it's New Year's Day, the first day of 2022, and already it's insane. Day one's about to go down, and from out of nowhere, Roman Reigns tests positive for COVID. This canceled a somewhat hyped main event between himself and Brock Lesnar, so they thought, Lesnar's here in Atlanta, why not have him feature in the other title match and win? Why? Because he's Brock Lesnar, it's as simple as that. Seth Rollins and Big E seemed likely for the victory, but it came down to the Beast. Great match, but this decision gave Raw a very huge blow that they still feel now, because the World Champion doesn't even appear that much on the show. First day and already things are wild, and 2 weeks later, SRS reported that Cody Rhodes was working without a contract in AEW. I didn't really think much of it. Instead, it was about the possible scenarios this could give. Even though there's a little chance of it happening, I was like, oh. Others on the internet shut this down saying it's impossible. Me, I thought as unlikely as it was. There's always a chance, even if it's 1%. Then he has the awesome ladder match with Sammy Guevara and loses the TNT Championship. He gives one of those Cody promos, you know, the ones where he talks about some stuff we don't even know about, and walks off. Oh, he's in the Rumble. Oh, he's coming out. Obviously, he didn't appear, otherwise it'd give you something to talk about because that Rumble was so dry, it sucked. Except for this crazy moment when you put some thought into it. Anyways, fast forward to February 15th. Cody walks away from the negotiations, and at this point it was huge. Cody Rhodes, the guy who's often bringing the fight to WWE, seems likely to join the company himself. Usually we see somebody go from WWE to AEW, not the opposite, so it was somewhat exciting. In other places though, Shane McMahon was getting booted from WWE. So it had been a while since we seen Shane O'Mac. He had that bizarre feud with Braun Strowman where he was sweating all over the place, calling him stupid, and now he's in the Raw Rumble. He ends up going further than a bunch of wrestlers, which was odd, and then it turns out a lot occurred backstage. He's pitching stuff that makes him look good, disrupted the flow of the Rumble, and this also affected Bad Bunny. You know, Bad Bunny, he's not used to the backstage stuff, and he kind of made himself look bad in front of him. And he was gone. His own father released him from the company, and to this day, we still haven't heard much from the story. Did others try to make him look bad, or was it entirely true? I don't know. It was a huge story a few months ago, but now it's easily been overshadowed, even though you don't see a son get kicked out by his father that often. Is this how it went? Here comes the money. Here we go. You know what does happen often, though? Legend comes out of retirement. Terry Funk has been in and out of retirement more than Jeff Jarrett's been in and out of a wrestling company, but there's always that one icon who never seemed to put on his trunks and get a payday. Stone Cold Steve Austin. Austin's retirement in 2003 was sudden, but even then nobody seemed to actually believe he was truly gone from the squared circle. Rumors for years circulated, but it just never materialized until now. 2022 is just built different. A sight that seemed about as likely as Ric Flair tweeting without caps. Stone Cold was gonna wrestle, and then the bell rang, and it said he was actually wrestling in a ring. Like, what? And he was facing Kevin Owens of all people. Last time he wrestled, Macho Man was preparing a rap album. 2006 couldn't drag him. 2011, rumor has it, was close, but 2022 had the pull. After AEW's memorable 2021, which brought multiple icons of wrestling to Jacksonville, Tony Khan opted to purchase a promotion filled with so much history and would provide the chance to tell the stories of current talent who were affiliated with said promotion. Ring of Honor. ROH had some recent issues, and with the uncertainty behind the promotion, Tony purchased it. ROH is now his and is basically AEW's basement. Talent goes up and down as evident by that Death Before Dishonor event. WrestleMania 38 proved to be one of the weirdest shows in recent history. Vince McMahon wrestled a damn match against Pat McAfee. Stone Cold's match, of course, was wild in itself. And Cody's return. There was a title unification to wrap up the show, and the fallout from the event changed the landscape of WWE in many ways. One of those ways was Sasha Banks and Naomi leading the tag team division. These two were apparently going to revitalize the division, but from out of nowhere, they walked out of Raw. And this was despite being scheduled to wrestle that night. Sasha and Naomi were so persistent in their way, they wanted to build up the tag division, make it interesting, they left. And now look at the tag division. Does anyone even talk about it? No. It was a very bizarre story, and goes to show how some wrestlers are fed up. And to this very day, even though they relinquished the titles themselves haven't been mentioned since. This story was big at the time. It still kind of is big, but not to the extent that it was in May. Then 2 weeks later, MJF walks away. Apparently he wanted more money, but Tony wanted him to sign. In some areas, this doesn't work towards the organization, especially when Tony's coming from the sports world. Very rarely does something like that happen, like somebody gets a pay raise without an extension. Anyways, he ends up doing the Wardlow match and cuts the scathing promo before disappearing. AEW never mentioned him, it's like he's gone, and personally, this was a huge story initially, but I kind of lost interest in it. I don't have a TikTok attention span or anything like that, but I'm not excited by it as I was initially. I remember it was one of the only episodes I missed of Dynamite that day, and I was like, what the hell? This guy cut this big-ass promo, this and that. And now I'm just not feeling it. It's easily one of the biggest stories to come from this year regardless, and it's still unknown whether or not MJF signed an extension, although in my personal opinion, I feel he had. Meanwhile, in Japan, Kota Ibushi is accusing New Japan Wrestling management of all kinds of things, from cheating bosses to the Yakuza. He had big problems with the company after a certain official broke his trust and tried to get him fired for breach of contract after he showed up at an event. Ibushi had a shoulder injury and was still working on his return while this was ongoing. And to make matters worse, Ibushi was so stressed over these issues that his mother attempted suicide. He lashed out on Twitter and was holding resentment over the company advertising him, despite knowing full well that he's yet to make a recovery. And as a result of all this, the company issued an apology to him, but also reprimanded himself and the official for their actions. Things are getting better between both sides, but it's still ongoing. One of the crazier stories, but oddly enough, I didn't know all these details until actually reading into it. I heard about the Yakuza thing. If this story wasn't in North America, I'm pretty sure this would have been mentioned more often than it was. One of the things that was obvious for a while now was that AEW and New Japan were going to work. A lot of the talent comes in and out of the promotion, so a whole event dedicated to this was expected. This may not seem crazy in itself, but I definitely thought it was weird seeing the likes of Jay White and especially Ospreay and Okada in an AEW ring. The partnership provided some great matches, and who knows where it goes from here. TV14 is, I assume, back. Why? Well, let The Rock take it from here, because, but in all seriousness, it's backstage WWE. Who knows what goes on in the back? I don't know. It's weird. Quick honorable mentions. Buff Bagwell and the whole Twitter thing. This was entirely bizarre, the whole saga. You know, Buff Bagwell got some of the fans behind him because of his takes, his tweets and whatnot. Then his, his handler, the guy that writes the tweets, turns out to be an offender. I actually wrote a part of it and actually recorded a part of this, but I'm not really knowledgeable on the topic. I just wanted to give it an honorable mention. It's weird. It's crazy. Brock Lesnar walking out after Vince retired. Lesnar literally left and came back 2 hours later, which is insane. I'd like to believe he held them out for more money, but it's doubtful. I personally believe Vince probably talked him into it. It's like, hey, just go, and he's back. Crazy 2 hours, though. And of course, Jonathan Gresham cussing out Tony Khan for a multitude of reasons. His match with Claudio was just there. The main talk was literally about Claudio winning and the post-match. No one really talks about the match itself, and I think he's gone, you know. He's probably gone from ROH. Insane turn of events. With that said, it doesn't matter what happens this year. This story in itself is going to be the biggest one. Vince McMahon retiring. Hell, it's one of the biggest stories in wrestling history. After the Wall Street Journal reported on a hush money scandal involving McMahon, he stepped down as CEO and gave control to Stephanie. He was still in creative, but then after the Journal reported a second story involving 4 women, I was like, he's done, right? Then from out of nowhere, he retired on Twitter. From everything, CEO, creative, all of it. I was more than surprised. Man has been working non-stop for 40 years now, and the last time he wasn't in control of the company, Thriller hadn't even come out yet. There's been a lot of stories about McMahon for years, and the only thing that shocked me was how simple he was in letting go. I mean, wasn't he the one talking about how he'll always be here? Odd, it's weird. His legacy needs no introduction. He expanded by breaking the territory rule, turning the WWF into a global brand and contributing to the creation of many icons. That said, his success should be appreciated at arm's length. I mean, we've known a lot of things about him throughout the years, so the recent news isn't surprising. His legacy is very complicated. He's got all these accusations to him, and at the same time, he's one of the greatest characters in wrestling history. His departure has been overdue for a while, and the WWE, whenever you think about it, he's the first person you think of, so him retiring just sounds so odd. But anyways, he's still a majority stockholder, and in some ways, I felt he could return to creative or something, but this was written like 3 days ago, so I'm literally reading a script that's somewhat outdated. He basically can't return because Triple H is in control now. Insane. Now, McMahon retiring makes me think something's coming. He basically turned WWE into the Walt Disney of wrestling, the Coca-Cola NFL, and it's because of him. He's got to pay. All he had to do was keep his pants on. I'd like to imagine some sort of cleanup like this.
Great, I'm back, and you're fired.
Oh my God.
Triple H being head of talent relations and the guy who was in charge of booking, surprising as well. We all thought, oh, Triple H is retired. Turns out he's the boss again. Everyone thought he was going to be the boss in like 2018 eventually, but if you told somebody 3 months ago this, they wouldn't exactly believe it. Now, there's an opportunity for WWE to change completely. Like, everyone's thinking to themselves, how is the company going to operate now? Personally, I feel it's going to be the same on paper. The grandeur, the spectacle, the big time vibes remain, but everything is consistent and there's a clear vision. And personally, if that's what happens, I'd like it, you know? It'd be nice. I hope things get better in WWE, because if they're on their game, it's really something good. Also, we got to mention this. Jeff Jarrett is further inside WWE than McMahon, technically. Once again, weird times. 2022, it just keeps on giving. Now, usually I leave the biggest story for last. McMahon is clearly the biggest story and there's no topping it. But there's one thing I wanted to talk about. Ric Flair. Now, after Dark Side of the Ring aired that Plane Ride from Hell episode, Ric Flair was seen differently. Not by everyone, because if you have knowledge of the Plane Ride from Hell, you knew this for years. It's one of those Ric Flair stories. Instead of doubling down and being quiet, Flair was threatening to take down others. And at this point, well, it was simple for him. The thing is, if he apologized, a lot of people would have been like, oh, that's cool, it's nice of you to apologize. Why? Because he's Ric Flair. He's got that legend status, all that, and a lot of people would have forgiven him. Not everyone, of course. He gets removed from the WWE intro, which greatly pissed him off. I don't even know why. AEW wanted him, but now they didn't want to get near him, and suddenly we see him wrestling with Jay Lethal, and the rumors circulated. Oh, maybe Flair's coming back to face Steamboat. And then it's revealed that he's got an entire pay-per-view for himself. It was going to be called Ric Flair's Last Match. Eventually, it's revealed that he's going to team up with Andrade to face Lethal and Jeff Jarrett. And the funniest part in all of this is that the build for his match was better than any match from the SummerSlam card. The poster makes it seem like right when the match ends, he's ascending to heaven, or hell, and I almost feel compelled to watch this damn thing, but I fear watching a man potentially suffer some serious injuries. I mean, if Jarrett brings out that guitar and smashes it, who knows if his soul's still in his body afterwards. The thing is, Flair doesn't really need to do this. From my perspective, the two greatest wrestlers of all time, not my favorites, but the two greatest from my perspective, Stone Cold Steve Austin and Ric Flair. Is some mafia gonna whack him if he doesn't bring him money? Unlikely. Does he want to support his nature boy lifestyle? Probably. But with that said, it's crazy that this event is going to feature wrestlers from just about every major promotion. Like, look how much pull Ric Flair has. Oh, and I forgot to mention that Jim Crocker Promotions is promoting this event. This year's on something. We still got 5 months, which is insane in itself. Who knows? Maybe Ric Flair will be the WWE champion, will end Roman Reigns' run. Maybe Jeff Jarrett's going to hold one of the world titles. I don't know. Crazy ass here. Alright, so I wanted to make this video about a month ago. Thank God I did it. I'm glad I didn't do that because, well, July in itself was the craziest year of them all. Literally half of the stuff from this video is from July. So I'm kind of glad that I did that. I was actually going to do a mid-year review or something like that. And for those of you that were expecting like, oh, I was going to talk about storylines and whatnot, that's reserved for another video, hopefully. If you guys really want it for this year, well, maybe we'll do it later on. Who knows? But yeah. Alright, what did you guys think of this video? Please comment down below, and that's it for this video. Make sure you hit the pedigree on the like button, or perhaps the figure 4 on the subscribe button. Peace. I'm out.